Good morning, New Hope. Pastor Christy here and Constance. As you can tell, I've been spending a lot of time in the patriarchs lately and in Genesis. One of the things that really stood out to me was the times in the Bible that people waited patiently for God to fulfill a promise and the times that they tried to force it. Pastor Rick was just talking about God's sovereignty in the last lesson that he did. I have kind of a different point of view to point out. It's interesting, particularly in the story of Rebecca, when Rebecca and Isaac are older. Rebecca was promised when her sons were born that the younger would be served by the older, that the younger would actually take precedent. And she kept that to heart. But when her boys got older, you had the whole situation of Jacob tricking Esau for a bowl of soup. And so he actually sold his birthright. But then you have the situation where Rebecca and Jacob get together and they decide that they're going to trick their father, Isaac, into giving this blessing, this inheritance, this right to be part of the divine, the line of Christ. All of this, they're going to trick him into giving it to Jacob. Now, you kind of wonder, why would Rebecca do this? Well, Rebecca isn't willing to wait. She's going to try to make what God promised her happen. And so they trick him. Isaac is blind at this point in time. He's very old. And Jacob comes in and pretends to be his brother. He puts on goat skin on his arms so he feels hairy like his brother. He disguises his voice. He makes food. And then he says right out, "I'm Esau." And sure enough, they get this promise. But in the middle of getting this promise that was already promised to him, he breaks the relationship with his brother. His brother decides he wants to kill him. He has to flee and go to another land. He has this strange relationship with his father-in-law where they're both trying to trick each other all the time. And he has to learn very painfully through a long period of time that he can't trick his way into what he wants. There's a scripture verse in Proverbs that says, God gives great wealth and great riches, and he doesn't give any taint or any pain with it. Now, there are times where we get wealth and we get riches, and there's a lot of pain with them. But I think a lot of times it's because we try to force something to happen. I think of Abraham and Sarah trying to force the birth of the promised son through taking a concubine, Hagar. That didn't turn out right, and God said, that's not the son I'm going to bless. I'm going to give you Isaac. I think of other times in the Bible. I think of Moses, who was told he would be the deliverer for his people. He had a passion for that. And he strikes out in anger at the slave master, and he kills him. There are so many times in the Bible where God promises something and we as humans take control and we try to force it to happen instead of letting God do it in his own timing. How much different might Jacob's life have been if he waited for God to give him the birthright that he had promised from birth? We don't know, because Jacob needed to go through a transformation time. He needed to change from the twerp that he is in the beginning to the man of God that he ends up being in the end. One of the things that's amazing about the Bible is that it doesn't disguise the faults of the patriarchs, the sins of them. They're very human, just like us. We make mistakes, we sin, we have times that we try to force God to do something the way we want to. And it shows us that in the Bible, and it shows us the results of them. It shows us the unhappiness and the consequences that follow in a life so that we don't have to do that. So my prayer for you this week, as you're going about your life, is that you look to God for those visions, those passions, and you also trust him. It's really a question of trust. Do we know God's nature? Do we trust him? Do we believe that when he gives something as a promise that he will fulfill it? If we do, then we can do our part of it, but let him do his part. We don't need to force something to happen. And a lot of times how we try to force something to happen is in a sinful way, like tricking, lying, getting angry. lashing out with violence like Moses did. So I'd like to kind of leave that as a thought. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Bye, everyone.